to the Warrant Committee meeting, March 17th, 2026. Karen, can you do a roll call to start the meeting?
We have Jay Funley, Nikki Boyson, Elaine Craighead, Lorraine D, Grace Doherty, Brian McGuire, Liz Tangney, Cecile Yang. You have a quorum.
Okay, great. We have multiple sets of guests here tonight. The first set of guests will be the Community Preservation Committee. We'll be discussing, and maybe Cecile can set the table for us. There are 3 articles that the Community Preservation has in front of us this year. I'd say 2 of them are sort of standard articles, similar to what they have in other years. But we want to focus tonight on the non-standard article, which is work on Wharf Park. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about, and I'm asking them to adhere to a 20 to 30 minute schedule to go no later than 7:30. After that, we'll talk a little bit about what upcoming meetings we have in the next week or 2. And then we'll have our guests from the school committee and school administration talk about the school budget. So can the Community Preservation Committee, I'm sure I'm mangling your name. The CPC people, please join us at the table. Can you start by introducing yourselves? Let's go.
Kathleen O'Donnell, I'm a citizens member on the Community Preservation Committee.
Jenny Russell, Vice Chair, and also citizens.
Rob Levash, I'm the chair of the Parks Commission and also a member of the CPC.
Cecile, I know I'm catching you off guard. Do you want to say like why there are 3 articles and why 2 of them are
Yeah, I mean,
sort of what background you've done for the
yeah, so Tom and I talked about the first 2 articles, which are pretty standard every year. So
Tom is
I'm the chair of the CPC. Thank you. Yeah, the first 2 are pretty standard, so I think in the interest of saving our guests some time, we can just move to the 3rd article, which is, from what Tom said, was the first time that we're doing this as a town. I'm also really excited to learn more about it.
okay. And I will say that CPC is only a few years old. In previous years for the Warrant Committee, I mean, the CPC has a bucket of money that they collect from people's taxes and they can spend it more or less as they want. So in previous years, they would come and tell us what they're going to spend it on, but they've made decisions of how to spend their bucket of money. So I didn't think we needed to discuss as a full committee about all those. But should I turn it over to you to discuss the Wharf Park article?
Yeah, thank you, Jay. We're 3 gonna take up about 3 minutes each, so we're gonna be as fast as possible so we can make into questions. And I know you guys were loaded with a bunch of background material, but we won't assume that you've read it all. So we're gonna do a quick, Rob's gonna do a quick how we got here with the CPC, the relationship of the application to us, and Kathleen is gonna talk about bonding in general, how it's worked for other CPA communities in the state. And I'll wrap up with just talking about where the town is at and what the meeting is for us. And then turn it over for questions. So I will be a strict timekeeper here. Rob, you're on. 3 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So in 2023, the Milton Wharf Park folks came to our CPC committee and asked for a design study, a planning study, which they engaged Greg Lombardi Design, who did their original design for them. They had 4 additional meetings with stakeholders, met with the community, and then they presented to the select board, which they received unanimous approval. They came back again in 2024. The CPC awarded them $73,500 for engineering costs towards $157,000 total. Which the remainder was privately raised by the Milton Wharf Park committee that was led by Scott McKay. 50% of the civil engineering plans were issued in May of 2025. And then just this last year in 2025, they appeared before our committee and they've asked for a $750,000 funding request towards a $1.2 million project cost. Construction budget, basically, that would include 75% construction documents. So after review and meeting with the Park Steering Committee meeting, we also met with Joanna McCarthy. The CPC voted on January 12th, 2026 to fund the project by bonding the amount of the requested funds. And as a bond request, it requires a separate warrant article that needs a 2/3 approval for town meeting, and I'll turn it over to Kathleen to just discuss about the bonding.
Well done, 2 minutes.
So in my past, I actually worked for our current town council, Copeland Page was then, not KP Law, and worked with community preservation committees around the Commonwealth. And the use of bonding is a typical way to manage the funds that community preservation committees collect. As you can imagine, many towns do not collect as much money as this town does. And so it's hard to do any kinds of major projects or even acquisitions of farmland or open space and that sort of thing with the existing yearly budget that people have. So using bonding, which we would be using through the town, is a standard way that cities and towns manage their CPA money and stretch it out for greater uses. An example, the town of Needham did that for their town hall project. The town of Plymouth did it for their town hall when they converted the courthouse. Anytime you have a project that's gonna be in a million or up, it's very typical to do the bonding. The important message we'd like to send to you is that it is not an addition to the tax, that it's not an override, it's not a surcharge. You are already paying Community Preservation Act fund fees every year. And so the debt service for this particular bonding comes out of the Community Preservation Act money, not the town's regular budget. So that's the difference, is that we have the funds available in our yearly collections to cover the debt service for this. And the assumption is that it's up to the treasurer to see which would be the most advantageous bonding. We don't participate in that, but it is the idea that we would be borrowing $750,000 for debt services paid out of our yearly funds that we collect, which is almost $900,000 a year that we collect in taxes. There's a state match, but we only get 1%. And last year was $150,000. So, but we have those funds available. And as I said, we'll be leaving that up to the treasurer to decide how that bonding actually happens.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there have been over half of the 201 CPA communities have bonded since 2001. And many have had multiple bonds. Amherst has had the most with 12. Neighboring Randolph has had 9. So it's not sort of a one and done kind of thing for towns. They use it many times, and the terms range from 1 to 20 years. In Milton's case, the suggestion is that it will be 15 years with a 4.5% probably rate, something like that. And that would be a range of between $72,000 and $82,000 a year, which would be paid by the CPC budget. So that would come out of the budget that we're given on an annual basis, which is roughly 1.1 million, 1.2 million, something like that. So it wouldn't be any sort of burden to the town to do this at all. So one of the things that we were sort of struck by, and we had, as Rob said, multiple conversations with the committee and with Scott McVeigh. I think he came before us more than 6 times, and each time he came with more people. So first it was him, and then it was the town, and then it was the Farmers Market Board, then it was the Friends of Milton Recreation, and then it was business owners, and then 99 Wharf, so 88 Wharf, sorry, whatever it's called, and members of the arts community. And he put together a whole list of the meetings that he had, and I think it added up to at least about 15 different ones in the community. And we also requested information from Doug Hunt about the tree, because the design will include taking down that beautiful red oak tree, and that had some concern for the community. And as it turns out, Doug found some rot in the tree, so he thought the potential for it not lasting very long was great. And the beech tree that is on the far side of the park has a much better chance of lasting for another 100 years, is what he quoted us. And you all have seen, I think, designs. If you haven't, we have them. You can take a look at them. I don't know if you had a chance to see what the design looks like. If you don't, let me know, and I have a copy of it.
I don't have.
Do we have the design side?
No.
You haven't seen
I haven't seen it.
I think one of the most impactful things for the design of this, of the design of it, and she'll pass it around, is that it really makes this park accessible. Which right now, that site is very rocky and there's tree roots that are like impacted over the ground. So it's really important for this park to just make this market accessible and for any other events that happens here. So we think it'll be very impactful for the community overall.
So what they're projecting is about a $1.2 million budget and for the CPC to come up with a $750,000 bond, which leaves $450,000 for them to raise or to get from in kind, which they expect to get from the town itself, other foundations, businesses and individuals. And the in-kind support is estimated currently at about $180,000, which will be for like plantings and some handrails and stuff like that. So the bond request, as Kathleen said, would not impact any kind of tax rates. The CPA would cover the administrative funds for the cost of the bonding, which is estimated to be a couple of $1,000s. According to Joanne, who we met with, the bond could benefit the town because it would be bundled with other issuances, particularly the fire station and the Cunningham schools, the ones that she mentioned. And thereby it could reduce the overall administrative cost of the bonding with UFASI, which is the Unibank Fiscal Advisory Services that provide the bonds for the town. So that's about it. As Kathleen also said, we won't know the exact rate until it is negotiated with the Treasury and with UFASI. And that would be after the bond is approved and other funds are raised.
I will say, I failed to share the attachments with everybody here, so you all got an email 60 seconds ago. Would you like me to share this up on the screen?
If you
We're
want
happy
to,
if you wanna put it up.
We're done with, open for questions.
My one question is about this extra. I counted it as 500,000, but if it's only 450,000, so much the better. You said they expect to, raise the funds to business donations and in-kind donations, et cetera. How, do they have commitments for that money yet? And how likely is it that those will come in?
What I will say is Scott McKay is he's been the force behind the Milton playground planners in town. And, his past success with getting 4 playgrounds installed in town, I think there's a lot of strong support there from him and his connections in town. So I have full faith that he will be able to raise that money.
The other,
Yeah, we did have business owners who did come to the
Who also,
CPC and answered that question when we sort of asked about it. Two things is that this $750,000 funds a substantial portion of this construction. The in-kind donations will help, and there is some sort of potential to kind of phase the development so that as they raise more money, they could be doing more things. The stability of the site and the accessibility, as Rob pointed out, would be the first, covered by that first.
But I also think, I do a lot of work with nonprofits and such, and when it also helps to have some money on the table to show other donors, hey, listen, we have a big commitment to this project that I think, Scott has shown our committee at least with the business owners and stuff who came out to support this. We think that it'll just continue to grow and be able to be completed.
so one of the business owners is JD Weil, who came to several meetings, and he was very enthusiastic about it. And he presented this image of course, the new cafe that's going in at the corner at the bank. There's no place for people to go to eat their sandwich. And he was and then one sort of development is the stairs, for instance, down from the post office.
There you go.
Right next to the post office, there are stairs going down that need to be developed. And so that's, one of the things that business owners would be very interested having the park there that would encourage people to hang and linger, right?
Yeah. I mean, for those folks, I mean, I'm sure you guys know this site, but I'm an architect, so I'll just jump in and I think this is like one of the an exciting site for the town. It's actually, you know, the fact that we have waterfront that is in our town, it should be celebrated. And I think this park will just completely bring folks down to the waterfront. You know, we have crew teams that kind of come out over on the side there, as you can see, like the water over on the front. 88 Wharf is just to the north of that. And then the park is kind of in your central piece. And then right behind you, of course, is the Milton Village, with the businesses that are local to there. So as Jenny was saying, you know, this new cafe, which is across the street from Milton Village, with, you know, in the old bank building, that's gonna open up soon too. So it's really a great opportunity for community members to enjoy this park.
Because we actually don't really have very many gathering places in this town, sadly. I live in East Milton, we have the deck over the expressway. Speaking about a place, somebody says, well, there's not enough shade in here, I'm like, well, try the deck over the expressway. But we don't, and the biggest gathering we have is on land owned by the trustees of reservations, not by us. And so the idea that the farmer's market, which gets, you know, there's the libraries down there doing readings for kids, the access to the tea, the access to the water, access to all kinds of things would just make this such a lively spot. And we, the committee, thought that it was a wonderful asset to develop for this town. When you think about the history of this town, it starts there. That's where the first factory in America is where the chocolate factory is. It was done by Isaac Stoughton in 1600. And if you look at the history of this site, you can see that it was, you know, shipbuilding, carpenters, all kinds of activity. And now it's just, you know, it's very much underutilized, as they would say.
Ron, I see your hand is up.
Hi, thanks. This sounds like a great project, and I think everything you explained is super helpful, so thank you for that. I just had a question. Are there other projects that would be deprioritized in order to do this one? Because this one sounds like a very, you know, it's a big project. It's gonna have a lot of costs over 15 years. What are we sacrificing to do this? That's just my question for just background. Thank you.
I think like at least for this funding round this year, we funded all of the applicants that came before our board. And then do you know what the hit would be on a yearly basis?
We
for this
had,
project?
well, we have a sort of an estimate that it could be, you know, that something like $72,000 to $80,000
$72 to 82.
out of the million, whatever that we get,
Yeah.
would be paid for this debt. We have, in fact, the first year when Rob was chair of the CPC, we did have the fire station people come to us, actually for this building. But that, we couldn't fund it because it had already been included in the budget. But we know that the Atherton is gonna be an ask,
You know,
potentially in the future. And we talked about this on the committee, and we believe that we have the funds to make, if that's bonded as well, we would be able to cover historic preservation costs for the Atherton. So we have talked about that, you know, when Rob was chair and when Jenny has been on the leadership of the Community Preservation Committee. We have talked about the fact that if this was a huge impact, and we do not believe that.
I mean, in terms of a percentage, it's probably 6 or 7% of our budget, right, on a yearly basis for, you know, for the next, depending on what the bond loan term is. If it's 15 years or whatever, that's what it would be. But granted, everything also is increasing year by year, right, as well. You know, we expect the CPC receipts will continue to grow as well.
No, it's a great question, and it certainly occurred to us. It was like, oh, is this gonna sink us? And because of the spread out nature of the payment of it, it won't. In fact, we could consider other bonds, as other towns have in the past,
As well.
at the same time.
Yeah, I guess that's the benefit of the bond, that you pay over time, but it does lock us into a really long, like almost a generation of folks will be paying, or 15 years of 80 grand is a big commitment. So that all makes sense to me. I just, you know, wanted to know if we had thought through opportunity costs. Thank you.
I mean, I'll say, unfortunately, Mr. Milano just stepped out of the room, but I'll say, but we have a finance professor here, so maybe you can agree or disagree with me.
Oh, no, I mean,
Well, what I was about to say was, a generation will be paying for this park, a generation will be enjoying this park. So the town will pay for it over the time that the town enjoys it. That appeals to me. I don't know. Brian, I see your hand is up.
It wasn't, but I actually do have a
Oh,
question.
okay.
oh, just, yeah, I'll just go quickly. So it was basically the same question. Where does the money go instead of bonds? And this, like you said, this will just be paying it down. Nick can help us with the detail, but I'm assuming that that this bonding isn't gonna push up against our limits or change our credit rating.
It will
whatever,
not at
whatever.
all.
No, we asked
No.
Johanna that
Okay,
question when
great.
she came before us, and the answer was no.
Perfect, okay, I trust her fully.
Because it
then.
has a dedicated stream.
It has a dedicated.
We have a
Right, I mean, it's
dedicated
revenue
funding
bond, right, I
Yeah.
get it, yeah.
So it is, it's a,
Doesn't
doesn't, it
compete.
doesn't increase the
Right.
risk
Sure.
on the part of the town.
Right,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yep, perfect, thank you.
Ron, I just have one question. Totally on the side. How large is that land?
Oh,
I don't, it's,
let's see, the diameter was like 60 feet maybe in the circle.
what do you think it's in?
I think that was,
Maybe
why do I
2
think
acre.
that?
I
That's
don't
the
know.
first
No,
number
I
that
don't
came
even
to
think
me.
it's an acre.
It's not even an
large
acre.
It's not
piece
even
of
an acre.
property.
Yeah.
My guess is it's a small park.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably less than an acre. I don't,
No, I think I thought, wasn't it something like 12,000 square feet? Something like that.
Is it in the specs?
yeah,
It
should
probably
be.
is.
Probably
Yeah,
in the,
I'm
it's
sure it's
probably
in
in the
the specs.
attachment,
Yeah.
but it's not very big.
Well, first see what.
It just looks like the whole, if you look at the whole picture, it looks like a large piece of
Expansive,
property.
yeah.
I'm like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
No.
I live
Yeah.
close by, what am I missing?
It's where the farmer's market is, if you.
Yeah,
wanna
it's
walk
literally
down
where
there.
the
So, yeah,
farmer's
you have a
market
sense
is.
for
Yeah,
it.
and the idea is that it would be linked up to the steps that come down from Adams Street. 88 Wharf has participated in the public outreach and has signed.
Yeah, actually, this is perfect. You see, go back to
Back
that
one.
last one. You see the steps that come off Adams? So that's the steps down, and then you'll see the new steps that just kind of lead down to the park.
So it's going.
Yeah. So this will be much more conducive for
is
the
nice. It
for
has
the
like a-
farmers market, so they
Yeah.
could set up their stalls
Yeah.
around the hard surface there. And so we'll just be much more accessible for folks.
So of course, it's not only gonna be used for the farmer's market. There was a lot
Yeah.
of interest in other programming. The arts community was interested in it, potential
Absolutely.
concerts, different kinds of gatherings, and connecting to the water in a way to get people, more on the water, by the water, walking it through the water, on top of the water. No.
Yeah.
How long will it take to do the construction? And I'm thinking like, will it just like hinder access to the site?
That was a good question.
That's a good question.
Um,
I obviously it's gonna take some time. I think they're moving earthwork and such. My guess would be anywhere between like 8 months or
Didn't
to
they
a
say they
year
were
or
gonna-
something like that. I
They were
don't-
gonna start sort of pre-construction because the funds won't be available until the start of the fiscal year after July 1st. And so I think they were thinking that they would be starting to do site prep and stuff like that in September.
Yeah.
But Nick may remember.
But that's also assuming that they
Yeah.
have other fundraising.
But I
Farmers
think,
market can't obviously
Yeah.
happen.
Right.
yeah. Well, and so I guess,
But Nick might remember what the construction schedule might have been. Sorry about
Speak
that.
the devil, and he appears.
Starting in the starting in July.
July, September, something like that, yeah. And then I think the farmer's market would have to find, obviously, an alternative
Temporary
location.
space,
Yeah,
yeah.
temporary space or something. Hey, that East Milton Square location
Yeah.
would be the
Good for me.
perfect spot, right?
I'm happy with that.
Right? Right? Yeah. Someone's gotta get used to this space.
Okay, we're at 7:25. I'll ask, I'll look around the room figuratively and literally. Members have other questions? Do we have other things? I guess I'll phrase it as, we're not gonna be voting on this one tonight, I don't think. So if we're voting on it next Monday, do we have questions that we need answered to form our decision next Monday?
I haven't seen the language on it, I haven't looked at the articles, so I guess that's probably in the emails, right?
Yeah, we have an old version of the warrant.
Right.
I'm looking at Nick, we'll probably get an updated version of the warrant between now and next Monday,
That'd be
almost
helpful.
certainly. I could pull up,
This is the current one.
oh, okay,
Oh, thank you,
great.
awesome.
Ron, you recognize?
Can we get a little more detail on the analysis of the tree, just in case? I think it sounds like it's gonna die at some point. Is it
Yeah,
in 10 years or 100
so
years?
we got a report back from Doug Hunt, which basically said that the tree is diseased, so over 10 or 15 years, we believe the tree will come down regardless. So the landscape architect
It's 32.
who
I'm not sure.
obviously loves trees, he's actually on the tree committee for the town, looked at this as like saying, listen, this is a big investment for the town. He sees this park as being a century-old,
Amendment.
park to plan, yeah. And so that's the reason why they decided that the tree should come down for this circular
It was sort
type
of
of pattern.
a larger commitment to the park. We have a letter that we are happy to share with you
Yeah.
from November 18th. And he said that the tree dropped a large limb about 5 years ago, and it has not dropped any limbs since. But when he went to look at that limb, he found some rot where the back 30% of the tree fell off years ago. And he felt that there was definitely rot inside that we cannot see. So the chances of the tree falling over are very slight. The chances of a large limb breaking off at this part of the tree increase every year due to this rot that we cannot see. And of course, the roots, the raised roots pose a serious tripping and hazard.
Right,
Is it okay if I share a Google map view?
Sure.
yeah, sure.
Quick.
I mean, that's one of the big issues today. If anyone who goes out to this park, you'll see the root system is just all exposed. So that poses a
So,
big challenge.
this is a picture from Google Maps. So do I understand this one in front,
That's
Yeah,
the
sort
one.
of the
the one.
sparse,
Yep.
I would say sparse limbs? Is the one that's coming down, and the one in the back, I don't know if you see my, the
That's
one in
the
the
one
back.
they would
That's
be
staying.
maintaining. Yeah.
That's staying.
So the beech tree in the back stays,
Yeah.
it's the red oak
Yeah.
in the front, and it's estimated to be about 150 years old.
But
So,
I believe that was a part of this project too. There will be new plantings as well, right?
yeah, we don't know where.
We don't know where.
We don't know if there's,
It
will
can't
be
be
another.
150 years old. I've looked at the atlas from It's not there,
Okay.
It's old, but maybe not that.
not that old.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be discussed at town meeting, and we try to, we wanna flesh out any issues that are gonna come before town meeting before they do.
So shall I leave his letter with, or do you want it emailed or? what?
Please email it.
Okay.
Yes. Please include Karen, WC clerk, and Karen can forward it to everybody. Yes, thank you very much, that's very helpful.
Can I just ask one more question? Are we getting the list of the other, are we gonna be voting on their other expenditures
You
too?
will, yeah, you will. Yeah, you'll have that. So there'll be 3 CPC articles before town.
One for the budget, one for the actual recommendations we're
Yeah.
making, which are 11 this year,
Okay, great.
and then this farm.
So, yeah, Brian, in my view, and we'll have Cecile and Ron both to discuss this next Monday.
Okay.
In my view, discussing at length, I mean, they have a pot of money that's theirs. Discussing at length every project that they're gonna spending the pot of money on, I didn't think was a good use of around this table. You may disagree.
Well, it's unfortunate because under the
that's
statute,
what our experts are.
we make the recommendations to town meeting.
Mhm.
And nobody gets to change those recommendations under the statute.
Oh, we don't get to, no matter what, we wouldn't, even if we
All
wanted
up
to
or
change it, we
down.
couldn't?
It's all up or
Either
down.
up or
All up
down.
or
Alright, so, up or down, okay. So, and, that's why we have our experts, Ron and Cecile
Yeah.
looked into those and they'll be talking to us.
And write recommendations on the warrant now, right?
Ron and Cecile do, and they've,
That being said, the CPC will be pulled out separately and they will present to town meeting, the separate projects.
It won't be on the consent agenda because we like to have, we feel it's important to have the opportunity to explain to the town meeting members what we are spending their money on. And so it won't, we pulled it all the time from the consent agenda for that reason.
So one exception or difference to this is that this particular warrant will require a 2/3 vote.
because of the farm.
because of the bonding.
So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. It is the strike of 7:30. I appreciate your time. You've answered our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for listening to
Feel
us.
free
Thank
to be in touch if you have any other questions before Monday.
So I will ask our school visitors to indulge me for just a minute. I'd like to talk about scheduling over the next week or so. Let me share my screen. Not from the beginning. She's on the slideshow. Okay, so this is what I'm seeing for the schedule for the next week, 2 week, this weekend, next week. Tonight, we're discussing the Community Preservation Committee and schools. So when I look at what's open and left to do, there's the signs bylaw. We've discussed that. So next Monday will be a big meeting for us. We'll discuss the signs bylaw and vote on it. CPC articles, we'll vote on them. The capital budget, we'll hear from our our representative on the capital committee. We'll vote on that. And then I'll say the overall budget. It'll be a big meeting next week because we'll have Mr. Milano presenting the overall budget to us. And we'll discuss how everything fits together. And I'm putting here a vote on key items. Now, I realize it's a lot to say. We're gonna be voting on, or we're gonna be considering the whole budget in one meeting. We'll be getting things in front of people before that night, obviously. And we've had all of our experts since December, if not earlier, looking into the budget, looking into what's been requested. We've got, recommendations from Mr. Milano. So I think we're gonna be discussing big items like use of free cash, things like that. When I say vote on key items, I think there will be certain things, probably the use of free cash, how we allocate to various stabilization funds, maybe the school's budget, that I think will be important for everybody to vote on. And then when you look at the warrant, you'll see easily 25 articles that they're important. Most of them are budget articles. Some of them are articles saying, yes, the treasurer can open an account this year. Some of them are articles saying the sewer people can use the sewer budget this year. They're important. They're mostly budget articles. But I don't think they're things that will require a lot of discussion around this table. We'll do the discussion on the 23rd. But when it comes to voting, I'm not looking forward to having 30 roll call votes. So when I say vote-a-palooza on Thursday, what I'm imagining is an in-person meeting with at least 8 people, so we have a quorum. And we've all decided everything, but instead of having 30 different roll call votes, we all show up in person, we have 30 votes by voice. I'm thinking less than an hour. So that's what I'm seeing for the next 2 weeks. Thoughts, concerns?
Just to get the information in advance, because I hate getting information the same night, trying to digest it and having a vote.
Okay. Specifically, there's the overall budget.
If there's changes in the articles, like to see that, the new
Okay.
updated articles.
Okay. There's the big budget, signs, I don't know if there's gonna be changes. Yeah, absolutely.
After Monday, we'll have the budget that we can look at to make a decision for Thursday, or is?
No, before Monday, we'll have the budget. Monday is, we'll have something in our email box before Monday. On Monday, Mr. Milano will present his overview of the whole budget. If there are things that we might be making decisions on, we'll discuss and make those decisions and even vote on critical ones that require decisions.
We should have some time, Brian, if we get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he keeps escaping the room at the right time. I don't know, he might be able to send us a budget tomorrow. I don't know exactly where he stands, but I think so. Okay, any questions? Okay, on this same note, before I turn it over to our friends from the schools, I would like to just sort of frame the discussion for tonight. It's the same sort of thing people have heard me say before. This is one of my favorite quotes from the Department of Revenue's review of Milton. Now, this is from 2013, but it took us a while to get the strong town administrator. It took us a while to find our feet on the warrant committee. One of my favorite quotes from the report is, The warrant committee should not focus on the minutia of individual department budgets, but rather reviewing major spending priorities, use of free cash, other reserves, the development of fiscal policy. I think that's what I've been thinking of this year when thinking, what do we look at? What is our role to review, and what is, too fine grained for us to review? When it comes to the administration of the schools, by definition, the administration of the schools is the job of the school administration. And the school administration is overseen by the elected school committee. The people of Milton voted for 6 people who are overseeing the school administration. Most people in this room have heard me say this multiple times. It makes me think of my analogy with the fire department. Previous years on the warrant committee, the fire chief comes in, and we love talking to the fire chief. We could ask him about fire trucks. We could ask him, do you really have a pole? We could ask him all sorts of things for hours, but it's not the best use of our time around here. Similarly, we could all talk to the school administration and the school committee for at least an hour, each one of us, about what we think about how the schools are run and what about this and what about that. I'm trying to keep things efficient, focused on the big picture of the budget. I will say, there are members of this warrant committee who said to me last summer, Jay, I will be on the warrant committee if you promise to keep it efficient and that we don't ask nitpicky things going into details that really aren't our concern. So that was a promise I made to get people to join the warrant committee, and I'd like to stand up to it. But then what is our job? We're not a bump on a log. We have a reason to be here. So our job, we present the total budget at town meeting and justify why our recommendation is appropriate. If we're recommending X million dollars for the schools, no more, no less, we as a whole, and me as the person receiving arrows and that looks at the front of the town meeting, have to justify why we think this is the right number. It may very well be the same number that the town administrator suggests, but we still have to justify, this is why we think the number is correct. It is prudent for us to do a review of large budget drivers. What's really driving the budget? What's the total increase? And then high-level financial issues regarding the town. This is something that I think the warrant committee should present to town meeting. Maybe I shouldn't have only given one example, but one example is, why are we having layoffs a year after passing an override? That's a relevant financial question from the town. That's a relevant thing for us to address. So hopefully I've covered, it's not a clear line. It's not a clear line what's in our role and what's not in our role. But hopefully that sets the stage of our discussion. So I would like to invite anyone and everyone who would wish to come to the table. School administration. I will also say, and I'm sure you'll say the same thing, the chair of the school committee is on vacation with her family. I talked to her for over an hour today. She may be, I noticed, Val from the school committee is on here.
Sure.
Okay,
She hasn't accepted the promotion, but maybe if she
That's
hears
fine.
us, she will.
that's fine.
And I'm not sure who Zoom is, if that's a chair, she can just raise her hand.
Okay. Either way, she wanted me to convey to you that it is not out of disrespect of the warrant committee that she's not here. I think goes without saying, but she asked me to convey it anyway.
Val has accepted.
Okay, great. So, take it away.
Great.
Oh, can you introduce yourselves? Start.
Yes.
Hi, my name is John Field. I'm the interim superintendent of the Milton Public Schools.
Lizzie Carroll, member of the school committee.
Mark Loring, member of the school committee.
Nathan Hutto, member of the school committee.
Katie Blake, assistant superintendent for finance and operations.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. As we get started, just want to take a moment to thank the subcommittee, Elaine, Lorraine, Julia, for spending some time with us, attending some of our meetings, probably too many of the meetings for their liking, but just all the kind of back and forth and ability to kind of bounce things off of them was very helpful. So really appreciate their time. Also just want to thank my fellow finance committee members on the school committee, especially as we talk about the development of this budget, Amanda and Nathan, because we spent a lot of time, we meet every week on the budget stuff since September, and so really appreciate that. And obviously all the work that John, Katie, and a lot of people in the school department do to put this together, to run our schools every year and to put together a budget every year. There are a lot of people involved. Not to discount obviously the role of all the other school committee members as well, sorry. And so just a lot of people involved in this, and so really appreciate that. I'll start there. We shared these slides to Brian's point. Unfortunately, it was just today because we were finishing some final changes, so apologies. But this is the agenda we're gonna kind of go through. Hopefully this will hit on most of your questions, things you're looking for, and then we'll certainly have time at the end for questions. And I'll pass it on to John.
Sure, as we normally do, we like to celebrate some of the things that are happening in the Milton Public Schools related to student achievements. I don't want to read to this group. I know you have the slides in front of you, but we have a really lot of good stuff happening in the Milton Public Schools. Things that are based on our new business classes, things that are based on our debate teams, future problem-solving teams that compete statewide, science Olympiads, in our echo literature and journalism group, as well as our robotics team. So all good academic-based activities where our students from K through 12 are competing across the state. Very excited to give those achievements to you. Very recently, as of this past Sunday morning, next slide please, we had our state champs girls hockey team won the state championship. It's the first hockey team from Milton Public Schools to win a championship. It's wonderful to be there. The town showed up, not just parents and students, but community members from all ages. So we're very thankful for that. In the same weekend, last weekend, we had our theater program finish in the semifinals to get ready for the finals theater competition in Boston next week. And we also had our robotics team perform at the state finals on Sunday. So a lot of good news and recent news to report as well. And then additional highlights are just things that are going on in our schools every day that students are taking part in. We really want to emphasize that the Milton Public Schools are a great place to send your children to school. We're thankful that our parents send us great students. We have wonderful teachers that challenge students every day, and we get great outcomes from them, and they have great experiences. So that goes a long way. So when we think about why our budgeting is important, it funds all the stuff that we're seeing on the screen, and obviously all the teaching and learning that takes place during our 180 days of school. Again, more great highlights. What you see in the bottom right-hand corner is the Sparrow. That's our famous theater program that competed this past weekend that will be in the state finals. They actually won the state finals last year. It was very impressive. They're a great group. And obviously we have plays that are going on from elementary to middle and high. And we have some good work being done at our schools related to art in our schools and music in our schools months over the last few months in each of our schools.
Great. So again, always want to start with the why. This is all about kind of the opportunities and the experiences we provide to the kids of the community. And so now we'll kind of dive into some of the numbers that support that. So some of these slides are ones that we shared previously when we came in front of you all back in, I think it was October, to try and kind of lay out overall kind of the budget process. As we talked about then, education funding for Milton Public Schools involves a wide kind of number of different accounts. The largest one being district operating budget, and that's what we're here in front of you tonight, right? That is the Warrant article, is the allocation by the town for that line. And so that's a really important piece of how we fund and operate our budget. The different components are kind of all of these things, which again, we shared back in October, but salaries are obviously 81% of our overall budget. So that's a really big cost driver. We'll talk about more later on in the presentation. We've talked about previously mandated expenses. There are a lot of things within schools that we cannot choose whether or not to do. We must provide them. There are laws, regulations around this and statutes that require things. Obviously, inflation adjustments, revenue offsets, these are all things that kind of come into play when we're developing our budget. The next piece, which Jay hit on a little bit, is again, we always think about our roles and responsibilities, the superintendent, the school department versus the school committee, like what are the roles we have. So again, we talked about this in October, but our school committee, from our standpoint, we really try and look at overall policies and guidelines we set, the strategic priorities and directions, and the superintendent and his team kind of make recommendations on how they're going to carry that out. They implement that on the day-to-day basis. They kind of create staffing structures and organizational systems that try and achieve those goals. And so that's kind of how we balance the things. Obviously, the budget, that key point at the bottom that Katie shared kind of back in October, but Budget is a policy document. It is reflective kind of how we are trying to achieve our priorities as a district. And so we always try and keep that in mind as we develop the budget year over year. This is just a flow chart we've shared previously from MASBO, the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials, on just what is a good budget process. So we really have worked hard over the last few years to refine the budget process within the school committee, collaboration with other boards, and really have a good process and good communication with our families and with the town as a whole. One of those things which we shared back in October was the original calendar. This calendar obviously did not happen in the way we wanted to, so apologize that we presented this to you back then. We are working collaboratively with the select board to try and refine the calendar for next year. We know we are here in March. We were hoping to be here with you in February. So I know that the pressure that puts on your time with all the other things you're putting in place and all the other things you're talking about, such as the CPC. So we hope to do better next year. But this is the current calendar kind of what we have worked through, the conversations we've had both with this board, with other boards. It doesn't obviously include every single meeting that the finance subcommittee meeting has had or all the internal meetings that John and Katie have had with members, but it tries to hit on some of the high notes. So kind of what has happened when, how did all those sequences come into place? So hopefully that's information you were familiar with, but just wanted to share it for the context. And the last thing we wanted to just remind folks of is this is kind of what we also talked about in October was we really started from a place of what is our budget philosophy for this year? What are we trying to accomplish? And so these were the 4 goals we shared back in October that we have tried to stick to as we worked through the ebbs and flows of the budget cycle, whether it was creating one that we thought was a level service budget, whether it was responding to different revenue gaps. These are things we still try and keep in mind every time we made a decision and appreciate John and Katie's leadership in kind of doing that. So the first is that long-term budget sustainability. That's something we talked about last year during the override process and obviously some of the challenges we experienced within last year's school department budget. That is a primary driving force for us as we've worked through this budget cycle. Strengthening Tier 1 instruction, and just to name, Tier 1 instruction is kind of the first level of instruction as you think about it like a pyramid. It's kind of the baseline instruction provided to all students within the classroom space, right? As strong as that is means that it supports more students in kind of meeting grade level standards, and that we want to make sure that is really strong, a solid foundation upon which you build every other support that you need to provide to students around differentiation, special education, those things. Those all sit on the bed of strong Tier 1 instruction. So that is always something that we focus on and wanted to highlight within the budget. Addressing student learning gaps is something we need to do. We need to meet kids where they are and find ways to do that. And we want to improve district school, classroom, kind of climate and culture. We want to make sure kids are getting to school, that they're enjoying their time at school, so their attendance is high, that families feel connected to our schools. All those things, we know the research shows that leads to stronger academic outcomes for kids if they are invested and their families are invested in the school community. Now kind of talk about our allocation and final proposed budget. So, John. Yep.
So first of all, I want to say that the school department is very thankful for the FY27 allocation of $75,613,973. We believe that we can provide a robust program for our school children with that budget. So thank you very much to the town and to the Warrant Committee. That revenue that meets our budget needs for next year, after we've gone through some series of discussions of how to expend that, we feel like we were putting a good budget forward for next year, so we're thankful. The slide that you're looking at right now shows that the town is providing the school department with an additional $2,740,060, which is a 3.76% increase over last year's FY26 budget. The Milton Public Schools for FY27 is the budget for the schools is $1,049,000 less than level service. Less than level service budget can result in reductions in staff or reduction in operation lines, non-salary lines, and potentially an increase in fees. And we can let you know to not bury the headline. All 3 of those things have happened during this budget transition from FY26 to FY27. During these last few months, we've been talking about budgets for the following years. being at 3% as we look at our revenue projections and potential expense projections with the town. And we really just want to focus on the discussion that we'll be having over the next several months about the potential of the school's expenses only increasing by 3% a year, which we feel would not be sustainable in order to provide a high quality education that our school parents and educators are used to providing every day. We're investing in FY27 in several things that we feel very, very good about. We'll invest in target areas to further budget goals and strengthening our district leadership around teaching and learning, expanding our investments in teacher collaboration, additional target investments and resources at the Tucker School. We provided some of those enhancements this year and will continue to do so next year. Continue to professionalize the HR department to support the ongoing needs of our staff, which we feel is very important. A good staff will provide the exceptional teaching and learning in our classrooms, and also working very hard in the target goal within the HR department in our DEIB committee to diversify our hiring process and diversify our staff. And also another culture and climate issue would be making sure that we have sufficient transportation to provide all of our students at the beginning of this year with the loss of a bus last year into this coming school year. We had a number of middle school and high school students who were not able to access the bus. So we made some temporary changes and got creative, but we want to be able to provide an additional bus, which we have increased fees for and also have allocated money in the FY27 budget. To balance the FY27 budget needs and cuts with maintaining a long-term budget stability plan moving forward. That's our goal, is to create a stability from a financial perspective for the Milton Public Schools. Just to talk about some of those investments specifically and connect them to our budget priority area, we are increasing the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, who provides all the professional development, curriculum work, meets with our principals and all of our curriculum directors, and is the one person in charge of all things that are teaching and learning. That was a part-time position, and we're looking to make that a full-time position. That 0.4 increase is a $72,000 increase in salary, and to connect it to one of our budget priority areas absolutely strengthens our Tier 1 instruction and addresses the student learning gaps that we have seen over the past few years that we are urgently addressing as we speak. We also would like to increase grade level facilitators. These are teachers that get stipends to actually work within their grade level, with their grade level peers in order to carry out all the curriculum work and all the assessment work. So there is one grade level facilitator in each of the grades at each one of the elementary schools. This was formerly a $600 stipend to do work with staff all year long, and we're raising that to a $1,000 stipend. Not very much money for a very big lever of gain for the amount of curriculum and collaboration that we see those roles having with our staff. That's incredibly important to the classroom that we're focusing on, where the teaching and learning happens. We also increased the team share this year at the Tucker School in order to address some of the achievement gaps. We will continue to keep that added 0.2, which is one more day of work for that individual to support strengthening Tier 1 instruction and addressing the learning gaps as well. That has been a very good model. The grade level facilitators and the team chair have been able to support very good work at the Tucker this year. We also will be adding a 0.4 HR position that will make that position a 1.0. We currently had a part-time person in that role this year, and we would like to make that full-time. This is a very important part of our administrative team. There's a lot of work being done with our unions, with all of our staff, with the hiring and all the different aspects of HR for a company or an organization of over 600 employees needs an HR professional. And also, as I spoke to earlier, we will add a district-wide bus in order to make sure that our grades 6 through 12 students get to school safely. They will pay a fee to ride that bus, and that will offset the cost of the budget. But it's very important that we offer to increase the culture and climate. We had some very serious concerns at the beginning of the year from parents who really expressed a desire to make sure that that bus was in the budget, and we wanted to follow through on that commitment to those families. Our quick summary of the FY27 budget. Last year, we had a budget in FY '26 of $72,873,913. The allocation for FY '27 will be $75,613,973. That's a net increase of $2,740,060. The cost of the school level service budget that we put forward back in the fall would have been an increase of $3,789,443.48. We have engaged in some of our budget priority investments to add an additional $279,000 this, and we have reduced positions in order to meet the total number of our budget. Those positions in the reduction in the dollar amount is $711,137,000. There are offsets to that of $56,000 for position cuts and other operating cuts where we're reducing some non-salary items to the tune of $673,846.48. So we're balanced out at our budget increase of $2,740,000. Any questions about anything that we talked about so far before we get into budget drivers?
One question.
Sure.
The position reductions, are they positions that people are actually in or ones that haven't been filled and will not be filled?
Great question. They're both.
Sorry, can you speak up a bit? It's hard to hear on Zoom.
Okay, sorry, I was just wondering if the
Thank you.
position reductions were people in those positions or positions that were open and not filled.
So we had open and unfilled positions during the current school year that we're in. Some of those positions will remain unfilled and actually eliminated for the upcoming school year of FY '27. And then some of those positions are actually currently filled by professionals that will be given non-renew termination papers come April.
Can I ask, the bus, will everybody be covered now on bus service?
I can't determine how many folks are going to take the bus next year, but I think that the capacity that we'll provide will meet the need of the folks that signed up on time last year. There were some folks on a list that signed up late or during the year that may have not got on. I'm not sure if the extra bus will handle that layer of the list, but we believe that we can meet the need that we had this year of all folks who signed up on time.
In terms of reduction in force, total positions, how many are you?
6.9,
6.9 positions?
that's FTE.
Oh, there equals 700,000.
Okay, thank you.
So cost drivers, what's behind some of the costs that we endure at the schools? First and foremost, our overall salary line is increasing by 3.72% in the FY '27 budget. This percent is reduced in the FY '27 budget due to the positions that we cut. So it's a combination of the reductions in FTE with the rollover of our staff. The FY '27 level service budget would have represented a 5.62% increase in salaries. The exact salary increase change year to year based upon the tenure of our staff, retention rates, continuing education work. The staff is engaged in negotiated COLA changes from one contract to another. We are currently negotiating our next 3-year contract as we speak. When you look at some of the DESI categories of our budget in the FY '27 form, I'll let this speak for itself, but you can see the majority of our budget in the pie chart above is professional salaries, administrative and clerical salaries. We then have other services, contracted services, supplies and materials, and other expenses. So that's basically our breakdown, and you can see the table on top and the pie chart on the bottom.
Can I ask, well, where, I know special education is a large cost driver, where would that fit in number 1? Would that fit in number 4?
It's in all of them.
All of them?
So
Okay.
that object code is just breaking the budget down between salaries and the categories in the salaries and then general expenses. But special education is allocated between all object codes.
Thank you very
Cost drivers and salaries, teachers' salaries are collectively bargained. We're doing so right now with the Milton Educators Association. The Milton Educators Association and the Milton Public Schools and the school committee engage in the same process of all public schools across the state. And the teachers get increased in compensation through 3 avenues. One is additional experience as a teacher moves up and down the pay scale of steps and lanes. The lanes are the educational part of that chart that is pretty consistent across all public school systems across the state of Massachusetts and quite frankly nationally. And during collective bargaining, adjustments are made to the salary tables, typically increasing steps with a cost of living adjustment to keep the compensation competitive. This structure of compensation is standard and meant to compete with other districts and towns so we can retain high quality staff. Cost drivers that aren't related to salary, transportation is going up by 8% next year. That's not just the bus, that's actually the bus and the expected increase for our transportation. I'm looking at Katie to make sure that that's accurate.
It's 8%, is the contractual increase for each one of the buses.
Is 8%.
Yes.
Thank you. So even if we didn't add the bus, we'd still have an 8% based on the 10 buses that we've already provided.
Excuse me, does that include the fuel surcharge or is that estimated out or?
The fuel surcharge is budgeted, but it is not a part of the 8% contractual increase.
It's a really question.
Correct.
Special education costs are also going up annually at rates higher than the standard inflation. Special ed contracted services will go up by an estimated 12.72% in FY27, and special education out of district tuition will go up by 12.27% in FY27. Tuition rates are set by the state. We don't have control over those rates, so we can't bid those rates. And we also have increased space at the Cunningham Collycott. Please note that there's a capital program going on at the Cunningham Collycott that is taking the library and making it into offices and classrooms, which is in place right now, thankfully, to the town from the town's revenue and the school committee's leadership. And we are now working on the library in summer of 26, and that library space will be available for all students at Cunningham Collycott for next school year.
Can I ask 2 questions? I think 2 questions. One is the special ed costs. I was looking at a earlier version of the budget from probably January, and just going off memory, the special ed total cost was approximately 1/3 of the total budget. The total budget in the ballpark of 75 million, and special ed costs in the ballpark of 25. Did I understand that correctly? Am I remembering correctly?
I don't know the breakdown. I can get the breakdown for you.
Okay.
It sounds, I don't know the exact number.
It's a sizable
It is.
portion of the school budget.
Okay.
The exact amount, I'm not sure, but it is a sizable portion of the budget.
So you have to contract with them because of the state. The state says you have to contract with SPED, SBED, and you have no choice.
SPED is a acronym for special education.
Right.
So it's, there are multiple different out-of-district placements, there are multiple different schools and programs that kids go to based upon their individualized needs. The tuition to each of those schools varies by the school and the program that the kid needs, and is it a day placement, is it an overnight placement, things like that. Severity of disability, do they require one-to-one services when they're on site, all those things vary in terms of what the tuition is. But the tuition rate for those programs are bid at the state level. They don't bid out, they don't negotiate with individual districts. The state manages that, and so they set the rate, so we have no ability to tell
And you
those
have to
providers.
use, you have to do that. You have to.
We have to
We have
provide
to
certified
provide
vendors for that.
An
Otherwise, we
example-
won't get reimbursed for certain amounts of this cost.
Yeah, the schools that we use have to be approved by the state, and the state sets the increase. And then annually, we'll get letters from each one of those schools that says what their increase has been approved by the state. They let us know individually. So we just received one of those letters today. They let us know that they went through the process to get their rate increased, and then they inform us of what the increase will be based on the state's regulations.
So one question on, where does Milton sit in terms of other school districts in terms of the need for special education? Are we higher, like where does that?
Yeah, I think if we look at our total population, I think we're relatively average in the amount of students who are on IEPs. And I would say over the, it's, if in comparison to my previous work in other districts, our out-of-district population is actually a little lower. So meaning the number of students that we send out to get services that they deserve is a little lower because I think we provide a lot of good services within the public schools. We have wonderful programming in Milton that has allowed not only us to service those students without sending them out of district, but they get to be with their peers, they get to be with their neighbors, and that's where they want to be. So we've really been working, I think the district prior to my arrival worked very hard and very successfully in making sure that the programming that we have within our 6 schools can service those folks to keep those children in schools.
Do we
That's
think
good
that
for them.
population's gonna stay stable coming up for the next couple of years, or is it gonna increase? I mean, do you have any sense for that?
These determinations are made at the team meeting that they have at the school. That's based on the participants of that meeting, the parents, the teachers, and the administration at the school. Where I think we could look backwards to find out what that percentage looks like, but I don't see any bigger increase happening. I don't have any data on that right now. So
I can share some historical stuff. So this is a slide we put together, I think maybe even shared last year at the Warrant Committee. These comparison districts are ones set by DESI, they're called our comparison districts based on size population. So you can just see SY15 versus SY24, that 10-year kind of window. What it started at, what it ended at. So you can see Milton's down there. We started pretty low at 13.34, and SY24 we were 18.58. I think within the current year we're 17.8, so we're down a little bit off of that 18.58. But obviously that is a significant increase kind of over that 10-year period.
Is that millions of dollars? I'm
No,
It's just the
this
average
is
number of
percentage of students. I'm
Percentage,
sorry,
yeah.
this is not dollars, this is kids.
Yeah.
So 18%.
So 18, but again, we're a little under 18% for this current year. This is a different slide that shows just change of total number of students based on total number of kids times the number of or percent of special education students. So that's why I have to point kids, how it's changed over time. And again, you can kind of see that line jumping up. We've kind of plateaued here right around kind of the 750 number of students. Obviously that this line is dependent upon your total number of students and also by that rate. So obviously Milton has grown during this time and our rate has increased. And the lower line, the orange line is, when asking about what that's ELL students, English language learners. That's also a population that has significantly increased since 20 years ago. And so those are two selected population enrollment.
So it looks like it's sort of stabilizing coming.
Yeah, over the last, our district, enrollment overall over the last about 5 years has somewhat plateaued. And so special education rate has done something similar over since it spiked post-COVID. Since COVID, it's somewhat plateaued, dipped again a little bit since 24. And ELL rates are again similar.
Can I ask this?
Please, sorry.
Second question. The out of district going up by 12% for next year. I shouldn't speak off the cuff, but what was it 2 years ago? It was somewhere in between. And that was great class in case of emergency, freak out. It led to, end of year. That seemed like it was a big problem and that was much higher. So what is the out of district? I guess what is the out of district inflation usually? Is 12 extraordinarily high? Is that gonna? I don't know how to say my question, but a few years ago we had something in the teens and that caused a huge problem.
Part of that was budgeting.
Okay.
Those were costs that were being incurred within the current year and the budget had not been set to accrue those. And then they had to go to the circuit breaker account to cover the costs that they did not budget for, and there was not enough money in the circuit breaker to do so. So I think that was a year prior to my coming here. And so I can't totally speak for it. Two things that drive the percent increase is percent of students who require those services, the types of services those students require can change in addition to the tuition. So this isn't, the out of district tuition isn't 100% caused just by the number set by the state, but also if there are particular needs that have grown across students, that number would also, as a percent of our overall budget, would also increase.
Thank you. So are you saying we already know what the FY 27 costs will be for the out of district placements?
At any given moment, anyone can move into town
I
and have a student that needs special education out of district placement, let's say, and we haven't budgeted for it because we wouldn't know.
I follow that. What I meant was for a student who we know who they are and we know they'll be here next year and we know what their needs will be. Do we know what the state is gonna charge for inflation next year?
Are all the rates in for next year's schools?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. You made a good point, Elaine. That was
Yeah,
a
I mean, in
different
some
question than I was
ways,
asking.
you can plan based on past years and do the kind of work that the school committee clearly has done, but there's always that that situation where you just haven't planned for it, you just don't know, so, yeah.
Which is a great segue.
Okay.
So the Milton Public School circuit breaker utilization, circuit breaker is an amount of money that we use to fund most of our out of district placement. There's three revenue sources that go into paying for most of our out of district placements, which is federal, which comes in the way of a grant, circuit breaker money from the state, and then local revenue that we get from our budget from the town. And as Elaine pointed out, we want to make sure that we have funds available for anything that may happen in a year. So if you look at this chart that we have on the right-hand side, after working with the school committee throughout the fall, talking about wanting to make sure that we don't end this year, this FY 26 year, the same way we started. If you look up in the highlighted, we started the year with $8,712 in that account. That is extremely low. Our circuit breaker reimbursement in FY 26 is $3.5 million. So we have been trying to gauge how much to use out of our federal, local, and circuit breaker money in order to be strategic about saving towards a balance of somewhere around 75% of our traditional circuit breaker reimbursement each year. So that number is roughly around $2.7 million. So we took a journey of saying that over 4 years, we'd like to be able to each year use a certain portion of our circuit breaker and then hold back a certain portion to pay our bills, to make sure that we're giving students what they need, but also, creating our own savings account just in case, to Mark's description of a few years ago and to Elaine's point about it could happen at any time. This is that flexible account that if there is an extraordinary circumstance, this is the lever that we use in order to make sure that we don't impact the general fund budget, that we can handle this within the Milton Public Schools budget. So as you can see, I think originally we wanted to have a 3-year plan to get up to that 2.7. We heard feedback from folks like Jay in the select board and others. Do you have to go that fast? Can you slow that process down? Can you use some of those funds to support the operating costs that we're seeing some reductions in this year? And so we did that. We reduced how much we were putting away. We stretched that goal out to 4 years. We used some of those dollars to reinstate some of the positions that were on that original cut list. And we tried to balance that process. We're fortunate that the work we have done with Nick Milano, who's behind us, our town administrator, he brought that reduction number from 2 million down to 1 million. So we have strategically worked with the town in order to balance the work that we're doing to try to ensure that we're fiscally responsible and strategic moving forward, but also wanted to take a little of the edge off and save some of the positions that were originally on that list. And I think that we've met at a good spot with that. But I can't emphasize that the circuit breaker funding, when we're starting it at $8,000 and it should be somewhere between 2.7 and 3 million, we have to actively deposit our own funding in that to make sure we can get to that goal over 3 or 4 years. But once we get there, we don't have to continually deposit that much of operating in that every year. Because once the balance is set, then we can free up some of those dollars in order to support the other operating costs that we have in the school district. And I'll use the example of OPEB. I think that if you're on the Warrant Committee, you're familiar with the budgeting of the town side, they had a goal of paying off the OPEB debt by a certain time in the future. And they took an aggressive model and paid it off quickly. So now the town doesn't have to dedicate any of the operating money in order to get that balance to the point that they need to by law. It's already in place. So I'm not an expert on OPEB, but what I'm saying is,
Sorry, what
once,
is open?
I'm sorry?
What is that?
OPEB is the retirement fund that the town's responsible to have at a certain level
Okay.
per state law. And so once they met that balance, now that freed up a lot of money in the operating budget for the town to use for police, for fire, for schools, et cetera. We're hoping to do that ourselves to get this balance to a point where we feel comfortable with that threshold. And then during the years that proceed after that, we'd have more operating budget to spend on things like teachers and programming and other parts of the school. But we feel it's important to move this work forward. Yes.
So that seems like a great plan. I'm curious, how can the expense be less than the reimbursement? How can you get paid? How can you get reimbursed more than you actually paid out?
It's the year before, right? Isn't that the post?
You get reimbursed from the previous year's expenses, and then you get the reimbursement in October. So whatever we spend on this certain type of expense will be calculated by the state at a certain percentage, and then they reimburse us in October of next year for what we just went through this year.
Right, but in the,
Even
Yeah,
in
Katie can jump
27.
in.
So the expense that is shown on this spreadsheet is only the portion of the expense that we're funding from circuit breaker. So the other portion, because our out of district tuition costs is much higher than $3 million, that's funded by the operating budget. We are just saying every year we are going to fund $3 million in tuition expenses from circuit breaker.
The rest comes out of other
keep
portions of our
some
budget.
The
And the
budget.
total cost of special education is beyond the 3.5 million
Correct.
we
So-
pay.
so
That
you-
only reimburses you for a portion.
So the 3.
85% of costs above a certain threshold. So none of this is reflective of the total cost of providing these services to students.
get that.
It is just, part of the federal kind of process. So when it says expense, maybe it'd be more clear to say utilization. Again, that is how
Correct.
much we are utilizing out of the provided circuit breaker funding that we are projecting to utilize out of the provided circuit breaker funding within that fiscal year.
but you get reimbursed for the expenses and they let you just sort of bank those reimbursements?
Bank them up to 1 year.
You can keep 1 year of a reimbursement as a balance to be able to offset any unanticipated, unbudgeted expenses.
So when you carry over, if you're supposed to use everything up in 1 year.
No, you can roll those funds over up to 12 months. So you can,
Okay,
so if we
within
get
12 months you have
reimbursed,
to use it.
so as an example, in FY '26, we are projecting to get reimbursed $3.5 million. There could be a scenario in which we spent zero of those dollars within FY '26. In FY '27, we have to spend $3.5 million because
To add
otherwise we
to
have to
it.
give that money back.
Okay.
So
But
it's
then the
really
funding
an
we get.
extra year,
Yeah.
not the year that you're in, but the extra year on top.
Yeah.
So it's almost
So it
2
just,
years,
it allows
really.
you to have, again, 1 year in arrears so that if there's an unexpected situation where you have a kid with a multiple $100,000 out of district placement that we did not know about in March and we find out about in October, that we don't have to cut positions in order to fund those. We have a balance within the circuit breaker that we can go to and say, okay, we need to draw it down. Again, the circuit breaker can only be used for special education expenses. It's not like we want to take the kids to Europe, and so why don't we just draw that down more? It is only for special education costs. And having that balance, again, provides you flexibility because special education is unexpected. It's very hard to know exactly students who will come in, even the students you have, how they will develop, what they will need. And so that provides you, flexibility within the department.
So FY '26 is actual, that's like what we already have, right?
Well, the ending balance is projected. The reimbursement is projected based upon what we've received thus far, so we haven't gotten that full amount. We received, monthly or quarterly installments.
So this next slide is basically everything that we just talked about. It's why we think it's important. It's the flexibility to use those funds in a way that supports students who have the need to get their education in spaces that are good for them and meets their needs where they are. I think that we have a history over the last few years of that account, to Jay's, your point and Mark's reaction to where we needed to respond deeply in 1 year in order to use that fund in a way to pay off expenses that were higher in any 1 year. That was just 2 years ago. So we are trying to, within our own budget, replenish that account to a level that we think is sustainable. That will take us about 4 years, but it's a journey that's worth taking, and you have to start it one step at a time, and we want to start this year. And we're very, very trying to be very thoughtful and strategic about getting there on our own by making sure that we're using our allocations to the best way we can. So we're looking forward to do that. It is in the best interest of the school district to have a stable circuit breaker account. This is a highlighted section of the financial consultant report that was done over the summer. That was, I think, requested by the town, connected to the override in the spring. They met with Katie and I. They also met with, I believe, Nick Milano and Amy Dexter and other folks throughout the town. And some of their findings we think is really interesting to share. This guidance basically supports the need or their recommendation that we always begin to make sure that we have a circuit breaker account balance over several years. And they have a prescription of ideally 2 or 3 times the annual rate of the increase of out of district. But their Milton's long-term financial resilience will depend on rebuilding reserves and establishing mechanisms to manage cost volatility, particularly in special education. The last 2 slides that we just had is our strategic version of making that line and that recommendation from that outside financial consultant, a reality in Milton. And when I arrived in June, right after the override and right after some of the budget challenges, it was very clearly communicated to me as someone coming in for a short period of time to stabilize the budget, to make sure the systems were working, to work with Katie Blake, who was the one who identified some of the challenges, who righted the ship last year, and support her work. The work streams that we have now, the financial systems that we have in place right now, and our eye on the budget on a very, very close monthly basis are all part of the strategies that we're taking to ensure that the budget will be sufficient and we will not overspend in the Milton Public Schools. We will be on time. We will not overspend this year. The budget that you gave us for next year, we will not overspend that budget. We will always be within our means. We owe it to the taxpayer to do that. That's part of our responsibility, and we take it very seriously. So I just want to bring people's memory back to the concern and the worry that folks had just about 8 months ago, 9 months ago with, wow, I hope this doesn't happen again. We're taking these kinds of steps to make sure that does not happen again to the school's budget.
Question on that? I thought it was a really good report. It's great. But one of the things they mentioned was like the ERP system. Are you going ahead with something?
A what system?
ERP system, like budgeting. What?
The accounting
Yeah.
system. So the accounting system, I would definitely look to the town, because that's something that we'll
Integrated.
have to do collaboratively with them. We use the town's accounting system,
Gotcha.
so, yeah,
Nick question.
yes.
I don't know that.
He's a good guy. He'll answer real quick.
Gotcha. Great.
It doesn't
Yeah, I guess,
regulate the
sure.
school
I
budget.
mean,
Yes, we would support that as well. But yeah, I mean, I assume that would come up kind of during your conversation about the rest of the budget. Yeah, it's definitely one of the recommendations that was in there. One we highlighted was what looked to be from my at least initial reading, our initial reading is kind of what is most school specific. There are a lot of things in there that are kind of joint school and town and how we again work together. We appreciate the town investing and bringing in that. That was something we talked about in the override process and told people what we were going to do. And Nick has been supportive of kind of throughout that time prior to the override last year and followed through on it. So we just are really appreciative of them doing it. Glad we have the report so we can start talking that through and see how we prioritize those recommendations. But as we highlighted, we are just pleased that those recommendations are aligned to kind of our strategy and a lot of the recommendations that Katie and her expertise has brought in and talked to us about at this point for over 18 months. And so really appreciate
sorry to put you on the spot, but I'd like to figuratively look at one of our members of the school subcommittee and literally look at two members of our school subcommittee with sort of an open-ended, either do you have questions for them, or more directly, you've been looking into this for a little while. What are your thoughts? I'm looking at Elaine. As most people in the room know, Elaine was previously a member of the school committee for 6 years. I consider her an expert in the school budget. Do you have thoughts of what's been presented?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the team if they could pull up the page where you list the cuts. And just to have it on record with the sort of rationale for why you came to the decisions that you ultimately came to. Of particular interest to me, but this is just sort of, I think, self-motivated, is the cut of the high school English teacher. Given the learning losses post-pandemic, given the fact that I work at the college level, I've seen the effects of that. I'm just wondering, and given that one of your goals here is to make sure that you are keeping people in front of the classroom and trying to keep those faculty to student ratios low. I just wanted to hear more about why that cut was made, but also just sort of let everybody look at these and maybe ask questions about these just to see what that 711-137 was in the original presentation.
So I'll walk right down the top and go down to the bottom if that's okay. The Director of Data and Analytics, that role and that service delivery will be embedded into a position that we left vacant this year, which was the Technology Director. That Technology Director role was vacated during the year. We did not fill it. They're responsible for all the teacher and student facing technology. And we felt by adding the data analytics service delivery into that role would be a cost savings. We want someone in that data collection and technology role to be all encompassing, be at meetings, work through the data, work with our staff, work with our principals and our curriculum folks. We think it's a good fit. And there are other districts that have a data analytic role within the technology. We have two technology directors, one that's the back of the house person, meaning servers, networks, devices, et cetera. And this director of technology, which is the front-facing position, is working with students and staff and curriculum leaders. And so we embedded the data analytics role into that new technology role. The second role is the Director of Fine and Performing Arts. This also was vacated during the school year. We decided not to fill it next year. That is someone who would be responsible for all the K-12 art and music staff. We have a role that would supplement this with this being vacant. We currently have one of our music teachers at the high school level getting a team lead stipend in order to oversee some of the work that's going on in connecting the curriculum dots between each of those curriculum areas from elementary to middle to high. It's more of a Band-Aid approach than a solid approach, but again, the stipend will be roughly between $5,000 and $10,000, which is a savings instead of paying the $127,000. So we're going to keep an eye on that and see and make sure that our students and our staff are well supported. But we think we can go one more year without that role being filled in with someone being in a stipended lead teacher model. We had an equity coach that left the district this year. We decided not to fill that position as well. A lot of our focus on our DEIB work will be in retention and hiring. We're working with outside partners, the Teachers Lounge and the Boston Plan for Excellence, in order to partner with outside agencies in order to help us recruit, maintain, and hire a more diverse faculty and staff. We feel that work can be supported by the HR director as well, and it will free up our current DEIB director to do more of the coaching and being in schools as well. So we're looking to build that work across multiple people. No one person in our community should be responsible for all the equity work. We think that equity work should be broadened across all of our staff members, and we're beginning to take steps to make that happen with professional development and outside partners to work with our staff. 504 coordinators are a relatively new role to the district over the last 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure when it started. They basically meet with families who may have some sort of a challenge for their child. That could be medical, it could be academic, that wouldn't necessarily be suited for an individual education plan or a special education plan, but they need some sort of an accommodation in order to make their child, allow their child to access the curriculum. So these coordinators are the ones that help run the meetings. These meetings used to be run by the guidance counselors, the assistant principals, the nurses and other folks that have contact with these families for the reason that they may need the 504. So we have 2 in the district, we're reducing 1 and we're gonna keep 1. And we're going to broaden that work back to our guidance staff, our adjustment counseling staff, our assistant principals, and our nurses in order to support that work. Similar, we have an academic tester position, that's a 0.6, so that means it's a 3-day-a-week person. And they basically help our special education teachers do some of the testing that needs to be done for their annual meetings that they have each year. That work had previously been part of what a special education teacher would do, in addition to service delivery to students. And we're looking to have some of that work go back to the teachers and doing some of that work throughout the year, the testing, along with some of the team evaluation leaders that we have in every school. We feel like, again, we can bring that work back to the folks who did it prior to that position being created just a few years ago. Out-of-district coordinator, we have 1 full-time out-of-district coordinator. This was a part-time 0.3 position. We feel with our out-of-district placements being under 50 or right around there, that's just enough work for 1 person to be able to do. If we compare that to what our team chairs do within the district, that do similar work for in-district students, that's pretty much the lowest per pupil ratio for that position. So we felt like we could reduce to 0.3 and only have the 1.0 full-time person pick up that caseload. Special education teacher, this was left vacant last year. We actually decided to hire an adjustment counselor to support a special education program instead of a teacher. That was a behavioral therapeutic program at the high school and the middle school that we wanted to be able to provide therapeutic support for, because not everything is related to any one part of why a child might be in a specialized program. It could be academic, it could be therapeutic, it could be behavioral. And so we felt we would round out those 2 programs with an adjustment counselor. That's why we decided not to fill the special education job. So that was kind of a shift in how we wanted to deliver that service. So that was not filled this year. We will now take it off the books and not fill it at all for next year. An elective teacher at the middle school, we have various electives at the middle school, not just PE, art, music, technology. We also have STEM. We have different types of reading, language arts, writing, math enrichment, ELA enrichment. So we're gonna take one of those positions out of that cadre of offerings. And that affects the electives that 6th, 7th, and/or 8th grade teachers, students would take. Again, we think the class size there is really doable. We took a look at this year's schedule and we realized that we could take one of those educators out. And those students would now be able to take all those other courses instead, and the class sizes wouldn't go up in any dramatic fashion across the entire Pierce school. And lastly, the high school English teacher, the English department, with this reduction, will have the same amount of teachers as the math department, and I believe the science department, which already with the 10 teachers that they have, their class sizes are very reasonable. We are focusing on tier 1 instruction for sure, but we're trying to do a combination of not touching the classroom directly, but also not wanting to impede too much on some of the special education support pieces that we were looking to reduce. And this is just a balance of that. Tier 1 instruction is very important. It is our main goal, but we feel this reduction, right now our class sizes in the English department are very favorable, and we felt that we could reduce that and still be in line with what the other departments have for class sizes. You are correct, we are trying to stay away from direct classroom positions. It's important for tier 1 instruction. But when we started this process of reducing more than that 7.9, we did have some special education support services that were, directly supporting students and indirectly supporting students. And we heard a lot from our families that was just too much, that they wanted those positions back. And we listened to that feedback over the last month and a half. So we put back some of those positions, as well as we put back the director of nursing as well. And that was a good month of feedback that we received via email and coming to school committee meetings. And we heard that and we responded to it. So this is what was left in that reduction.
Just to say the obvious, obviously, the reason for the position cuts is because we had to cut $1,049,000 out of our level service budget, so there was a gap. 81% of our budget is positions. There's no way any school department really could possibly cut that much without losing some positions, and so that's kind of what drove that.
Okay. Jay, can I hop in? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me in the room?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So I'm a member of the subcommittee here, and I first you sort of asked for our thoughts and on this process on the budget. First off, I want to say that no one wants to see cuts. I should say I think very few people want to see cuts to the schools. That being said, I think the school committee and superintendent and everyone involved, I think, has been very thoughtful about how to go about balancing this budget. And I really commend them for being open to the feedback, soliciting the feedback, being open to it and incorporating a lot of it and making those changes. I know that can't be easy to feel like everyone is Monday morning quarterbacking you on everything all the time. So a lot of credit to them for that. At the risk of pontificating here, just at a 30,000 foot level, I think we need to go back to the process of determining whether or not we were even going to have an override last year, and then ultimately what was the number that was going to be put on the ballot. And the select board at the time was not even willing to consider a needs-based budget. So we were incredibly lucky, quote unquote, that we even got a level service number put on that ballot. So I think it's good for us all to remember this could have been worse and this could have been better. And so this is I think a lot of people tuned in during the override last year who aren't maybe normally plugged into what's going on in the town, started learning how all this works. And here we are with the consequences of the level service budget that we knew was going to put us in this position. And my concern is that I'm worried that people don't understand that this is going to keep coming at us year after year, and we're going to keep seeing cuts if we expect our schools to stay within an unrealistic, 3 to 4% increase year over year. That's just not, that's not what other districts are doing of our size, of our caliber. And if we think we can do otherwise, I think we're going to start seeing the effects of that in the education that our students receive. So again, I'm getting a little off topic here, but I just want to remind all of us and anyone watching that, elections have consequences and we are in this position for a reason. And we need to think about how we want to avoid being in this position in perpetuity moving forward.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, a little bit off topic, but a little bit on topic. And in some sense, the warrant committee, the only question before the warrant committee is what total number do we give the schools? Is it 3% more than last year, or 4% last year, or 5% more than last year? What they do with it, they're elected to determine what they do with it. So in that sense, it was very on topic, and that, the big picture percentage increase is very much our business. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? Thank you for the presentation. The positions that you've cut, and I understand why, and it all makes sense. I assume there will be an ongoing evaluation process throughout the year to determine the effects of it. so that we're not in a situation where we're in dire need of something because because it looks like you've shifted some tasks to provide to people already, and does that work? Is that too much? Is something else not going to get done because they're doing this? So that's my one question, so I'm glad to hear you'll have an ongoing evaluation. And then just a side thing, as students have increased, special needs students have increased in the school system, have you had to increase the number of employees that support these students? And so is your plan to keep bringing in as many students as we can in-house, so to speak? There would have to be an ongoing, continuing increase of support staff, I would imagine.
Yes, but there's a good balance there, right? So first of all, the more students that come back and go to the Milton Public Schools as opposed to having to get on a van and go somewhere else, it's just good for kids. So we're always looking to do that. And there may be a cost to the general budget that we are expending, but there would be a corresponding decrease in the out-of-district budget that we would see that would generally offset that. But those are never really dollars and cents questions. Those are always us asking families who may have an out-of-district placement, what would it take to you to come back? What do we think your child, what can we do in-house? So the example would be the therapeutic addition of the adjustment counselor to the classroom at the middle school and the high school could actually bring someone back and say, if you have that kind of support, I think my child could be successful there. So that's the kind of proactive staffing and resource allocation that we're trying to do in order to try to balance that. It's usually in the best interest of the children that we're trying to do that. And once in a while when that happens, it is actually cost effective as well, but sometimes it might not be, but it's still what's best for that child.
I guess I would again turn to the subcommittee. This might sound like I'm in the discussion. I do not think discussion is over, but I would turn to the subcommittee and say, the warrant committee is going to recommend to town meeting a dollar amount. It very well might be the same dollar amount Mr. Milano recommends, but let's say it is. Does the subcommittee feel that we can say in writing in the warrant and standing up in front of town meeting, yes, we think this is the correct amount for the school budget?
Just speaking personally, this is just me. I would say yes. I really appreciate, among the many things that Julia and Lorraine have mentioned, I really appreciate this long-term focus on budget sustainability. Because I might as well say it out loud, when I chaired finance for 5 years, it felt like laying on Band-Aids and just trying to get to yes. And doing the same thing every year, scrambling to make it work. And I think this idea, and I especially appreciate the move from the quick turnaround of 3 years, for working with Circuit Breaker, to the 4 years, I think has made it a better budget with fewer cuts and something that I can get behind.
Thank you. Julia or Lorraine, do you want to add to that?
No, I'm just saying I agree also. I just I think there's been a lot of really good changes in how we're moving forward. With working together, town working with the school and circuit breaker account is great. So I would feel comfortable with this as presented.
Yeah, same for me. Again, I know the process was painful at times, but I appreciate the collaboration again across the different departments and players here, and I think that it's in a place now that I'm comfortable supporting it.
I'll ask a question. I talked to Mr. Loring about this previously, so I hope I'm not catching you by surprise. I mean, 80% of your budget is salaries, and they're going up by, I don't remember, 3, 4, 5%. And wrapping our heads around, we hear the word steps and lanes, and we don't know what that means. So do you have we talked about this previously, do you have like a sample to show us as how much?
Jay? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not trying to catch you by surprise,
you're not.
but I
No,
think
we-
it's important for us to understand.
Jay, have to wake up earlier in the day for that. I got you. So we talked about this, we worked through some of these, I wanna name, we're using an example, so we have a couple examples here we can go through. We're currently in budget negotiations with the MEA, so we are not able to use FY '26 versus FY '27, right? FY '27 does not exist. We talked about whether or not we project something, but felt like that was inappropriate given kind of where we are. We don't want to be kind of inappropriate with the ongoing conversation we're having with our partners at the MEA. So Katie was kind enough to kind of take an example of an existing contract. This is from 2022 to 2023. And so this just walks through one example of a new teacher. They come in with no years of teaching experience. So they come in at kind of step one. That is their salary, or what would have been their salary in 2022. The very following year, they move up one step because they've now completed 1 year of teaching experience. They have an extra year, they're on step two. And so they get that 57. That is, that 57 is calculated. It's an 8% increase, as you can see. That is both because, as you can see, the step one has increased. There's a COLA applied between 2022 and 2023. So there's a COLA applied to every step on that scale, which is, again, standard practice. So they get that COLA and they get the additional funding for moving up to the other step. So that's one example. And again, that brings this one employee who was in their first year, that's an 8% increase in their salary. Another example is somebody who moves up. Is this the same example? I think it's the same. I messed this up. Katie made another example and I left it out, so I apologize. But we want to provide another kind of more current example of like somebody outside of Milton, right? Because again, is Milton the only one? So here's Hingham, and again, all school districts have their contracts, their public documents. So this is just pulled straight from their Hingham website. This is kind of current 2025-26. So in this example, fourth year teacher in the B lane, and again, we'll get to lanes here in a second. That's what they make this year, $71,447 if you're teaching in Hingham. Next year, what are they gonna do? Because their union contract is agreed to through 2027. They would go to 76. That's a 7.44% increase for next year. And again, you can see kind of going from 4 to 4, that increases because there is a COLA from 26 to 27. So that's one example. So just one person moving from 1 year is 7.44%. Here's an example that gets a little more complicated where they move between lanes, right? There's the B lane, which is bachelor's. This is bachelor's plus 15, which is a lane over. And again, these are all very standard lanes across all public school districts. After bachelor's plus 15, there's master's. So when you earn your master's. So in this scenario, somebody in their 7th year of teaching who's in B15, they make $83,000 approximately. Next year in Hingham, if they earn their master's at some point this year, and next year now they're moving over a lane, they also move up a step because they have another year of experience. They're now making $95,000. It's a 14% increase to that person's salary impact on the budget for the following year. So those are examples of how that kind of step and lane works.
Could I add on behalf of our educators that this example is a great example of going from a bachelor's 15 to a master's degree means that educator took 36 credits of courses in order to get there. So the amount of money that they put out in order to pay for those courses, the time they put into getting those courses complete and being successful is all part and parcel of why. Because if you look at that and say, wow, 14%, that's a lot of money in any 1 year. Well, it's probably been 3 years of classes and a good $40,000 of tuitions that person is paid in order to be able to make that jump from one to the next. That's just, it just says, give the context a little bit.
Thank you. I think that helps explain why the year-over-year salary increases, what, 4 or 5. One thing you didn't show, I was peeking at the union contracts earlier this week, and once they hit like 15 or 20 years, they stop going up in steps, did I say? So
Yeah.
So to me, that would say, okay, long service employees are only going up by 2 or 3%, the short service employees are going up by 7 or 8%, it averages out to, am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah, that's once you hit the top lane, top step, there are no more steps, so you just get whatever that COLA is that is negotiated. So again, 2 to 4, I mean, there are all kinds of different COLAs that are negotiated across the.
And then when putting together next year's budget. The wrong question is, what do you do when putting together next year's budget? Stay and go up by 1 year? Any assumptions about lanes? Because you know who's gonna move lanes?
Yes,
Okay.
so we have a list, the teachers, there's a committee, they submit their information, so we kind of track. There's some language around the timing of when they provide the information, so it gives us the ability to be able to budget for it.
Oh, okay.
And so we keep that information, and then we also, for all of our employees, because many of our collective bargaining agreements, not just the teachers, but the instructional assistants, the custodians, many of them follow similar where there are steps included. We take everyone that is employed in the district this year and then we step them. And if we know that they could potentially have a column change, then we include that information as well.
Right now on March 17th, or retirements that might come up in the next couple months?
It depends on the timing. So if we know of the retirement when we're building out the salary projections, we can certainly include that. And the same can be said about sometimes what we may have educators that may go on a year-long leave. And so we make sure that we earmark them in the budget because we know that they will be coming back in the following year. But we also do know that there may be a replacement in for them. So we're just keeping track of kind of the people that we are anticipating are going to be working in the Milton Public Schools in the upcoming year. The timing for the retirements can be tricky because the educators may not tell us that they're planning on retiring until after we do the salary projections. So it's pretty much all of the information that we know up until that point in time, we incorporate into the salary projections.
So if you know of a retirement, you make an assumption about who will be replacing them?
In some instances, we can, yes.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, what's the average tenure for teachers here? Like, have they mostly been here a long time, or what do we?
So we keep track of where all of the educators are, the steps and lanes. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we do just keep like the scatter of where each one of them sit. And I would say the majority of our educators are kind of in the higher step in the master's category.
And can I ask a question about the steps and lanes? I think last we understood, Katie, this was being done, these projections and incorporating this information was being done manually because you did not have software that could take this into account. Is that still the case?
Yes.
And Mr. Milano's in the room this time. Yeah, I think that gets back to something we discussed tonight and other times that. I'll shut up.
mean, surely that exists. We just don't have the money for it, I assume. I'm playing Andrew's role here. I feel like normally he's the one who
Yes.
makes sure to advocate for getting this software to the schools, and I'm with him on that.
I'll just say one more time, though, again, to the point of the manual that kind of Julie's making, which is Katie, and we say Katie because we're lucky enough we get to work directly with her, but she's got a lot of other people that help her, all the principals, the department leaders, obviously John, not to leave John out of that. There's so many people within the department who work very hard to kind of make these things work. As John mentioned, this is a 640-person organization. This is the largest entity within the town. This is incredibly complex in terms of number of employees, number of students, the needs across all the facilities, what they kind of manage as it relates to, if you look at it as kind of a separate business, is quite large, and they do so, they put in a lot of time, put a lot of focus on, again, what is best for students. And so I really just appreciate, I think, the work, and I think it's been echoed here, of a lot of the budget planning that we've done within FY27 that we're presenting to you is with that kind of as the underlying foundation of kind of how they've approached it, how they've helped lead us as a committee kind of through this and share what they think we need for next year. And I think throughout the process have been very helpful in answering questions and, as you all said, taking feedback, and we really appreciate the feedback we've gotten from our warrant committee members who gave it to us, from the public at large, from the select board, town administrator. It's been, as Julia, I think, said, it's been challenging at times, but again, I think we've gotten to a strong final product.
Brian?
By the way, I thought it was a really nice explanation of the budget variance, the projected to the budget variance. So thank you. Can I just ask 3 questions? Are we on budget for this year, coming year?
Yes, and I shared them late because I think I sent them today. But Q1 and Q2 budgets are both things we've shared previously at finance meetings in public. Q3 budget will come out here in a couple months. Both of those show we are on target within the current year, so there's no issues with the current year budget.
Awesome. Most of my questions were answered throughout the presentation. But fees, student fees for different things. Was there any, I know it always comes up, but like, is there any discussion on increasing that for?
We increased fees to increase revenue within fees by about $78,000. We increased transportation fees. We increased rental fees that we do for not town-based programs and not nonprofit programs, but for other programs, which are our biggest rental group. So we increased those fees by about 10% for next year. In transportation, we increased by about $40 on about $350 or $325. So I don't know what that percentage is. They never have, they never will. We are, again, transportation is mandated. So we have to provide transportation. We can't charge the vast majority of the students use transportation. Transportation is mandated. High school kids, we can and we do, except for students who require door-to-door transportation within their individual education plan. But yeah, chip fees were discussed and were increased as part of this budget.
Are we, so the residency program, is that still?
Yep.
Still following it?
Yep.
No issues.
We're going through.
I think that's all my questions. I think that report was really good. It was,
Never has that few questions.
interesting. I know a lot of that stuff came up last year.
Yeah, no, they're great
The
questions.
consultants report, you mean?
I mean, you want more? No, I was kidding.
Yeah.
You mean the consultants report?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone within the past week got that. It's a draft report, but it's very good. That's a subject for another day, but I guess there is one thing that I would like to close the loop on when talking about, for next year and the year after, will it be 3% or will it be more? And I believe, Mr. Phelan, you said we're gonna work on that in the next few months. I would like to say something about that. Town meeting is the first week of May, and I, speaking as an individual, feel an obligation to stand up in front of town meeting when I'm talking about the finances of the town and talk about a forecast. And that includes a forecast that has, let's call them reasonable assumptions for schools, among other things. That's 6 weeks from today, give or take. I know you've seen some of my early work on a forecast. I would appreciate help from Mr. Loring, Mr. Milano, anyone else in this room who wants to help. I'll say it will be a forecast. It may not be the forecast. It may not be the final forecast, but I feel an obligation to present to town meeting. Here is what, a reasonable forecast might be for the next couple of years. And that would presumably include not cutting schools to the bone. So when you said hoping to work it out in the next few months, I'm hoping to work something out a lot sooner than that.
Yeah, I was referring to the work that we do when we meet on Monday mornings, that we have agreed to meet next Monday with forecasts from both the schools and the town and begin to build that understanding of what we think the revenues will be over time and what the expenses will be over time. And in my experience, we always like to have those discussions in the spring, but really look to have have the last fiscal year be closed out and let that be the last data point. So when we sit in August with Nick and I and Amy and Katie will be here, but who's in Katie's role, and then start to talk about what are the projected revenues, what are the projected costs, and start having that dialogue in August in preparation for anything that we need to share with the community in September and October when everybody gets back and is prepared to get back to town work. And so that budget calendar and that kind of projection work, I'm looking forward to do. So when I say in a few months, I mean that I'd really like to do that work as well with you in those meetings. And I think that the real meat of that work will happen when we really see the FY26 close out. We'll have some good recent data points, and then we'll have hopefully the beginning of a budget calendar that allows us to have that corresponding conversation of what we think the revenue projections are, what we think the expense projections are, and do we have to worry, or are we in line, or what that gap might look like. And so I look forward to being part of that work.
Okay. So I will look at the committee. You saw the schedule from, I'm not trying to end conversation. I'm trying to say, you saw the schedule for the next couple weeks. Meaning next Monday, we're gonna discuss the meat of the budget. I feel a little faint when I think about discussing $150 million budget in 1 2-hour meeting that has other things on the agenda. This is one of the, if you're just looking at departments, this is about 2/3 of the size of the budget. So it's one of the more important ones. Do we have questions? Are we prepared to go into next Monday feeling like we understand what we need to understand in order to vote next Monday on at least the school department line item budget? If not, what questions do we have? One of our members likes to berate me when I try to draw out discussion. He says, "Jay, we're done, be done." Are we done?
You're done, I think. I'm feeling that vibe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the presentation was good.
Obviously, if there's any follow-up questions that arise in the wee hours, please send them our way. We're happy to answer whatever we can.
Appreciate
for
your
the time.
support, very much
Yeah.
appreciate your
Thank
support.
you.
Thank all of you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I will, and I don't think there's any more business to discuss, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
Okay, do I see nods around the table? Yes,
Indeed.
okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks.